What's going on? Jake here with Uncommon EDC. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Winterblade cofactor, and this one's from the batch 3 run. Mine has the titanium handles with that carbon fiber backspacer, although it was available in several other configurations, including some that featured that flipping mechanism that we saw on the previous batches as well. Now, frankly, this is one that I didn't really expect to come across my table, and it probably wouldn't have had this not practically fallen into my lap. So originally available via a pre-order that took place in May or June of 2023, and these just shipped out a little over a week ago, which was within the expected delivery window. They were estimating mid-February, and we're able to hit that goal, so that's great. But the reason I wasn't expecting to receive one is because I didn't pre-order one, and so fortunately, my buddy Jason over at Unlimited Blade Works did pre-order 3 and was willing to let one go. So super appreciative of him. There was hardly any markup, I think around 5% or so, which is really nothing when you consider the secondary on these. Original drop price was $395 for this configuration. And so really excited about it. One, because I'm not really into pre-orders. I got burned on the last pre-order I did, and I'm still trying to be made whole on that one. And so I don't really do pre-orders, nothing to do with Winterblade, just kind of left a sour taste in my mouth. And then also because Winterblade does some really innovative stuff, and I've always wanted to check out one of his knives. So you can see right on this shop towel or microfiber cloth, whatever you want to call it, has magnetic EDC on the bottom. And this model features a couple magnets as well. First, for the locking mechanism, so this is called their M lock, and it looks similar to an axis lock or crossbar style lock, but really looks are the only similarity, functions very differently. And you can see if we look at the backside skill, there's no opening for that lock like you'd see on a typical crossbar. Also, excuse me. Also, when you manipulate the lock while it's closed, it doesn't do anything. So you can't use that as an alternate deployment method like you might be able to on an axis style lock. And so still a really great lockup and very satisfying locking mechanism to use, really ambidextrous friendly as well. Even though it's not on both sides of the knife, I can easily manipulate this lock with my left hand, and I'm not left-handed or very coordinated with my left hand, to be frank. And so really cool locking mechanism, but not the only magnet in here. We have another one right behind this R, but on the backside scale, that creates a sort of magnetic detent. It's sort of an implied detent, obviously no detent ball or anything there to create that detent, but it creates the feeling of a detent. And that's one of the changes from batch 2 to batch 3 is he's using a stronger magnet for a stronger implied detent there. And I'm glad they are. I don't have batch 2 to compare it to, but the detent on here feels pretty much perfect, as close to perfect as you can be, and so really satisfied with the magnetic detent here as well. And I don't know if that's really even going to pick up, but the magnet is right here inside of there, and you can easily see it from the outside, but may not be showing up so well on camera. Now, besides creating a detent, it also has a secondary effect, and that is locking the blade in place when you're closing it. And so this is on ceramic ball bearings, super smooth action, creating this drop shut. As soon as you pull that lock, it drops shut immediately. And when you have action that smooth, a lot of times what happens is if you don't let go of the lock in time, it's gonna hit the back and bounce back out. And this one, that never happens on because of that magnet. It basically just grabs onto it as soon as it's dropping. And so pretty much 100% of the time when you drop that shut, it's going to stay shut and you're not going to get any sort of bounce. At least in my experience so far, I haven't had any sort of bounce. And so really satisfying action on that. Now, in terms of dimensions, this was available in a few different configurations. So weight-wise, it's going to be a little bit different. Like there's a carbon fiber one that's got a really nice blade to weight ratio. This one's a little bit on the heavy side, but not too bad either. Now, lengthwise, we have a 4.3-inch handle, allowing you to get all 4 fingers wrapped around there, no problem. You can see there's a pretty generous choil here that you can use as a finger choil and choke up even further. And that's a really nice locked-in grip, still able to get all 4 fingers, obviously. And if you have much larger hands than me, that still shouldn't be an issue. And so really nice grip here. It's locked in. The only complaint I have is I do feel this pocket clip just a hair right here in the corner in the palm of my hand, and so it's not too significant, not too uncomfortable, but I could imagine after a long bit of cutting that could develop into a mild hot spot there. But overall not too bad, and the ergos otherwise are very, very good. No jimping on the spine, but don't really feel like I'm missing it. I'm pretty locked in there. You can get right up behind that tip really nicely. Now in terms of steel, it's going to depend on which configuration you go with. So this one has a 3-inch blade, but it's M390. I think you can also get it in MagnaCut or Damasteel. And so this one's an M390. It has this really nice stone wash, really well done. And I like what they did with the text on the blade. You can see the show side is super sterile. It has the stone wash, but nothing else. And then if we flip over to that back side, we have the M390 and the Winterblade right in this thumb opening or thumb hole, kind of in line with that. And so tucked away really nicely, doesn't have like billboarding that's super obvious outside of this factor on the handle. And I don't mind that much, honestly, because it's so well done. It looks good. Even though it is billboarding, it's just really well executed. And so I think that looks pretty good as well. So 3-inch blade brings our overall length to about 7.1 inches, and this titanium model weighs in at about 3.8 ounces. So like I said, a little bit on the heavier side when it comes to that blade to weight ratio, but still not too bad, feels good in the pocket, and don't really notice it, to be honest. Now, in terms of our handle, obviously the configuration you go with, that's going to change, but on this titanium version has some really excellent machining. This is OEM'd by Bestech, and they did a really great job with this milling pattern, great contouring all the way around the knife, and just really well executed. Super nice, ton of attention to detail. This one has the carbon fiber backspacer, and so you have a lot of these black accents that aren't actually carbon fiber but look really nice with the carbon fiber and just gives it that pop of black, kind of breaks up the overall pattern nicely. So we have a DLC coated pocket clip as well as G10 inlays on both the pivot and that M-lock, and so all ties together really nicely. Now that pocket clip is super deep carry and a well executed pocket clip. It is reversible for lefties, which is again nice because it's a very ambidextrous knife that can be manipulated left-handed or right-handed. There is one thing that I did want to point out though, if you're switching this over to lefty carry, if you end up making that swap, the right hand carry, there's a contact point where the pocket clip contacts the scales, and that's not machined on the right hand side. And so you have this opening space to keep it from destroying your pants or jeans. Now the milling pattern on here is not super aggressive, but that's not present if you swap it over to lefty carry. And that's probably to keep just a better overall look on that show side scale. If you did have that opening, you just have a weird square right here. And so I think most lefties are probably pretty okay with that trade-off because they did still at least think of the lefties and make an ambidextrous carry. Now, one of the other changes we saw from batches 1 and 2 to batch 3 is there is an upgrade to T8 hardware, which isn't really a deal breaker for me, but I hate T6 hardware, to be honest. It's always just kind of an annoying thing. Why didn't you just go with T8? It can't be that much more expensive. And so really glad to see them swapping over to T8. You can also see this pivot has this kind of interesting design. So non-tooled on the show side, flipping over to that back or pal side. We do have some tooling, and it looks like it might be a proprietary, but you can use probably a larger flathead screwdriver, a pry bar, a coin, whatever you want with some tape. There's not any sort of proprietary tool to open that. He recommends a coin with tape, and so it is a D-shaped pivot in here, again on ceramic ball bearings, and just really satisfying. One thing that I thought was really interesting is this has a very unique ting to it, which I'm sure you've heard, but I'll stop talking for a second. So really unique ting to it, and so that's super satisfying in its own right. But one thing I thought was really interesting is the site actually has a page for tuning that ting, and so if it's not quite what you want it to be, he has some suggestions to improve the acoustics on this knife, which is something I don't think I've ever seen on a knife's website before. There's actually a lot of helpful maintenance tips on there, including how to disassemble this without breaking those magnets, because what will happen is if you disassemble this incorrectly, the magnets will clash up against each other, they'll attract each other, and sometimes those can crack. They do have replacements available, but there's a lot of suggestions on that site, so I'll link to that page with all of the information on this in the description below. But would love to hear your thoughts on this one down in the description. For me, I'm super stoked on it. It really exceeded my expectations. I did get to handle one of the batch 1 or 2 ones recently, thanks to Rob Nice, who brought one to the fall CCKS show, which I was able to handle, but didn't spend a lot of time with it and got it back to him. But really excited to have one of these in my collection finally. Really fun knife. But again, would love to hear your thoughts on it down in the comments below. You do get a ton of extras with it. So we already showed the shop cloth. Comes in this little waterproof case, kind of Pelican style case, and with a coaster, a magnet saying factor B3 for batch 3, and a magnet appropriately. And so A lot of cool extras with it as well. But thanks for watching. Hope you have a great one. Take care.